One of the pleasures of being a portrait photographer are the fascinating conversations we often have with our subjects. In this short film, I share my conversation with my friend and fellow photographer, Steve Prezant.
My objective in photography wasn't necessarily to make art. It was to make money and to do it in an enjoyable way. But beyond it all, I wanted to make money doing photography. I realized I really enjoyed making a photo that I can control. Move this way a bit. Could you raise that light a bit? It was mine when I did that. It was partially mine when I designed it. When you walked around and carried a camera with you, which I do, it's something else. You see something, you're photographing it. So I loved advertising and commercial photography because I could create an image and I could build it. And it was like a writer telling a story. I started doing commercial photography when I was young. I started assisting, and then I sort of learned the craft of it because I didn't go to art schools. And I enjoyed the idea of building a photo. And I did that for about 30 years. I didn't like someone over my shoulder telling me what to do. So I wasn't exactly the best at making clients happy. A lot of times they liked the results, but I'm not saying they thought I was difficult, but I might have been. I morphed into stock photography, and I was sort of on my own. I was still trying to sell something, but it was in my way. And I really, really enjoyed that. And I did that for about 15 years. Now, at this point in my life, I'm sort of trying to do more, I guess you would call it fine art, but that sounds pretentious. I'm just doing photos that I like doing, projects that I like doing, about the food we eat, about getting older, about patriotism, people waving flags. There's all sorts of things that go through my mind, and I try to, in some way, voice how I feel through these projects. Every once in a while, I feel, wow, okay, that's a good shot, and I did it. Sometimes you just agonize over every little thing. Why did I leave that pencil in the shot? Why didn't I adjust that hair? That light is too strong. I mean, there's 1,000 things that you could pick at, and it's hard to go, I just love it. I love it. You always notice your own little mistakes, or you think it's a mistake, and then I think that somewhere along the line, you realize the world isn't perfect, so no photo is going to be really perfect. I think, for me, a good photo is one that you stop and look at and try to find something in it that relates to you sort of internally, because you identify with it one way or another. So when you think about certain photos that are memorable, and you go, well, what makes that memorable? And there are, shocking news images that will be memorable because they're so shocking. But if you're doing a portrait or something, that's a whole different thing, because these people, they're not on a world stage. It's not watching a child who's starving, or, that famous photo that Adams did of a Vietcong or Vietnamese general shooting someone, and it was stopped. I mean, these are people that you don't necessarily know, but there's something that's so intriguing about them that you would want to put up on a wall to look at if your wife would say, you could put that on a wall because it's not family. But you have to, as a good photographer, you have to shoot something that resonates, that goes a little deeper than just what's shallow. I enjoy looking at other photographers' work because, first of all, I'm fairly competitive. And in a way, I look at myself and I look at them. And then you think of some of the masters that the public knows about. Avedon, for instance. And you could go, man, I could never do that. And then you think of someone else in the public domain, Annie Leibovitz. And then she's really heralded, but I look at that and I go, it's too much. It's too much for me. I'm not in awe of that. I'm in awe of what she's done, but not what she's done photographically or the images themselves. So by analyzing it, I sort of keep it in my mind to do my own work. Am I overlighting something? Am I underlighting it? Can I do more? Can I do less? And it's important to look at other people's work. I mean, it's a way of keeping yourself with a certain sense of balance about what you do. So there's a fine line when you're doing a photograph of how much you want to push where it's not that original person or object. And you have to be careful to, on a certain level, show the person in terms of reality, but also put your own sort of imprint on your feelings about that. And sometimes it's not very pretty. I've had sort of situations where I'll do a photo and it doesn't seem very sort of glamorous to the person, but they love it because they feel that it's them. I started with analog photography because there was no digital photography. And there was something about it that I loved. I worked in a darkroom, got my hands wet, and loved seeing images come out of the soup, you called it. And it was very gratifying. But when you did a photo, before you did it, you had to say, am I going to shoot daylight or tungsten or black and white, or is it going to be a faster or more sensitive to light film? All these decisions you had to make before you actually started photographing. With digital, the process is different. You start taking pictures and then you could make it black and white. You could soup up the color more. You can change the dynamic of it, and you don't have to stop after 36 frames. Depending on the size of your flash card, you can go on for quite a bit. To analog, for some of these kids, if their intent is to slow the process down, I think that that's great. If their intent is to be cool, because I'm using an older process, I don't know about that. It's different kind of a thing when you've been doing it for such a long time. There's got to be sort of a purpose behind it. Prints is very important because you're seeing them large and you could look at the detail. But when it comes to Instagram, it's like eating McDonald's when you want a good meal. I think that everybody comes to a point where they feel what you would call is like, I have writer's block. When you're a photographer, it's not so obvious. It's just you don't feel it happening. You don't feel it. And sometimes you put away your cameras and you just don't shoot for a while. But a lot of times you work through it because there's a process. So when you start out and you might not think you have anything, but then as you start working with it and changing the parameters of the photo, all of a sudden you go, okay, this is starting to work. And it's like working through that sort of inner malaise where you are able to sort of work through it because the process helps you.
Truly, I'm very lucky that I still enjoy it, that I found it when I was basically a kid, and I still stick with it.